السميع العليم من شر نفسي وسيئات عملي وشياطين الجن والإنس. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله الأمين، حبيب إله العالمين، أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد
وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين. صلى الله عليك يا رسول الله، صلى الله عليك يا رسول الله، صلى الله عليك يا رسول الله. السلام عليك يا أمين الله في أرضه، السلام عليك يا بقية الله في أرضه. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
I seek refuge with God from every form of evil as I begin in His name, the Beneficent, the Merciful, the one with all qualities of excellence, the one whose attributes and His essence are one. Similar to how you can observe an object in the center of a room, and you can look through each window that gives you a peek into the room. Imagine a room, and you have a window on each wall that you can look into the room and see the object. You see that sphere in the center of the room. This window is a red window. You see the ball in the center of the room. It looks like it's blue because I'm looking at it through a blue window. You look at the other window, which is red, and you look at the ball and you see the ball is red. You look at the other window, which is orange. You look through that window and you see that the ball is orange. Each window pane with a different color makes you look at the ball and think that that's the color of the ball. Blue, red, clear. The ball, however, is not any one of these colors. But at the same time, you can correctly describe it as each of these colors from the different perspectives you're looking at it. God Almighty is indivisible. He is unchanging. He is not one attribute which is not the others. He is not simply living but not able. He is not able but not knowledgeable. Rather, He is the all-living and the all-able and the all-knowledgeable. He is all of these, but not only at some times and not at others. He is all of them at once. Similar to the analogy of the sphere in the center of a room. This is an analogy I benefited from one of my teachers. He was using this analogy to bring this idea closer to home. Samat Sayyid Haidar Bahar Ulum, one of my teachers. I remember when I was first attending a class on Islamic beliefs, Tawheed. This was before I even went to Hawza. This analogy helped bring the idea closer to home. The idea of how Allah sifatuhu aynu dhatihi. How God's attributes are His very essence. That at the same time, you say He is the all-living, He is Al-Qayyum. The same time you say He is Al-Alim or Al-Alim, He is Al-Qadir, the all-knowledgeable, the all-knowing. The attributes of His essence are one at the same time. Similar to how you can observe the ball from different window panes, each of a different color. So you would say that the ball is blue when you're looking from the window pane of the color blue. You would say Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the all-living when you're looking from the aspect of His life. When you're looking from the aspect of His ability, you say He is the all able, the all-capable, the all-powerful. When you're looking from the aspect of His knowledge, you say He is the all-knowledgeable. I begin in His name, the one with all attributes of perfection. And I ask Him to accept the little praise that I am offering. All praise belongs to Him, Lord of all worlds. And I ask Him to shower peace and blessings upon the chosen ones and upon the guardians of their message, especially the 12th living guardian of the message that belongs to the seal of all prophets and messengers. I'm speaking of Prophet Muhammad as the seal of all prophets and messengers. And of our living awaited Savior, Imam Mahdi, the 12th Imam, the 12th guardian of the message of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. God Almighty says in the Holy Quran, and what has been described by some of the reports of Ahlul Bayt as one of the most impactful and intense verses that were revealed to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam in this detailed form. And that is Ayatul Kursi, which you probably see here. I think it's still hung up if it's from the previous nights. Ayatul Kursi, which begins with the following words in the Holy Quran. After Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Allahu la ilaha illa hu al-Hayyul Qayyum. The verse continues, but I wanted to focus only on the part that I read right now for the topic of tonight. But before I get into that, I wanted to give a quick summary of what we've been talking about so far. This has not been a series in the technical sense of, perhaps you might be thinking a series is on the same topic and we're giving different episodes in the same general theme. But in a sense, there is an underlying theme, even if it's not a technical series. The underlying theme I've been discussing is how we think of our worldview. What type of spirit it's supposed to inspire in us, and trying to reflect together so that we can ignite that spirit, especially in these nights, in the holy month of Ramadan generally, and in the night of power, which we're searching for in the eve of the 19th, the eve of the 21st, and the eve of the 23rd, especially the eve of the 21st and the eve of the 23rd. Tonight is the eve of the 23rd. But in particular, the first night, or the first session, the first presentation focused on safety and security as a priority. We saw that through the lens of Munajat Amir al-Mu'mineen. As'aluka al-aman, I ask you for aman. And all of the different verses that were referenced with that in the beginning of the dua, in the beginning of the munajat. Then the second night, the second presentation, we talked about how some would be willing to give up everything to save themselves. That we would sometimes be willing to give up everything we have for survival. This was one of the themes I focused on, or the key theme I focused on, also inspired from Munajat Amir al-Mu'mineen. And the part where, if you remember the verse we ended with, where it talked about how on that day when you would be willing to give up everything, not only your relatives and your family and your children, your money, everything on earth, just to save ourselves. And we reflected on that as a reason for us to think of, why should we wait until then to save ourselves? Why don't we just start now? In the third presentation, one of the key themes I focused on was how historical accounts and the study of history is not enough for us to have a proper understanding of the world and to keep us inspired and to achieve our goals. That we also need to read in between the lines. We need to use sound reasoning and appeal to our sense of morality when we're looking at the events of history. What makes sense? What could have happened? And what would have happened based on what you expect with sound reasoning and your sense of morality. That's how you can kind of filter through the different narratives that are brought forth. your feeling and understanding and your belief based on sound reasoning that God would guard the true narrative in every day and age through a guardian, that allows you to filter through a lot of what is said about the nature of the world and the nature of what happened in history. In the fourth presentation, which was yesterday, I spoke continuing off of that theme, but then I focused on linking it to two types of servitude, two types of ubudiyya, two types of slavery, but slavery in a very distinct sense that I tried to clarify. Not the type of slavery that may come to mind when we think of the history of slavery in this country or in many parts of the world. Rather, the type of slavery which simply is shorthand for complete need, complete dependency on God. There are two forms. The first is one that we have no way to escape from. يَا مَنْ لَا يُعْبَدُ إِلَّا هُ. If we're to understand that phrase from Dua al-Jawshan in the sense that no one can be worshipped, no one can be the object of ubudiyya except for God. Perhaps you can think of that in the two senses that I've been speaking about when I'm talking about ubudiyya now. One is one that no one can escape from. It's not your choice. We are, by virtue of being creatures, by virtue of being limited beings, by virtue of being who we are in need of God, in dependency on God. We are not completely independent. No matter how much we may lose touch with the fact that we are actually dependent on God and everything, when we're in the weakest of our moments, we realize that all along we've been at the mercy of God. This is a type of servitude, a type of subservience, a type of dependency, a type of ubudiyya that we have no choice in. Every creature is subject to it. From the rocks to the trees, to the humans, to the animals, to the jinn, to the angels, all fall under this. وَإِن مِّن شَيْءٍ إِلَّا يُسَبِّحُ بِحَمْدِهِ. There is not a thing that does not praise Him. Everything, every atom, every quark, subatomic particles to the nth degree, and everything that is beyond. If there's a multiverse, every possible universe, all of them praise God, but we do not understand their praise. They're praising because at the end of the day, their very being, their very life as beings, whether it's a biological life or simply the life of being as a rock or a stone or water, their very existence testifies, if you were to listen to it with the voice that can allow you to hear the reality of what they are, what their truest identity is, they would be praising God. That's the first type of servitude, ubudiyya, subservience, dependency. But the second is the one where we have a choice in. It's the one that makes a difference between a prophet and one who is not. Between a believer who is a practicing and devoted one and one who is not. It makes the difference between the one who is elected to become the one who is Rasulullah after being Abduhu, the one who is chosen as the messenger of God after being God's servant. It's about that choice that we make. It's that motion that we make towards the beloved with the virtue of what makes us responsible for our actions, and that's our ability to make a choice. We choose on that level, with that type of servitude, with that type of ubudiyya, we are the ones who choose our master. So which master do we choose? Do we choose to be slaves to our desires and to our whims? Do we choose to be slaves to another creature simply just like us? Or when we call out Ya man la ya'badu illa hu in Dua al-Jawshan, do we call out O you who no one other than you is worthy of being the master of the one. No one other than you is worthy of being the one to be worshipped. Ya man la yu'badu illa hu. O you who no one is to be worshipped but you. That's the type of slavery that sets you free, dear brothers and sisters. That's the type of slavery, that's the type of feeling and connection with God that if we were to taste it, if we were to feel it, or if we were to just remember that it's what we feel deep down, that is perhaps one of the key goals in these types of nights, especially in Laylatul Qadr, to sense the reality that what we really are. What am I deep down? What's my truest identity? This is what I focused on yesterday, and I tried to kind of summarize it right now. Tonight, also kind of connected to this idea, is that we are in need to the core. And hopefully through our interactions with the supplications tonight, we'll be able to break down the barriers that are keeping us from feeling it. If what I'm saying so far makes sense to you, please raise your hand. So it seems almost all of us, if not all of us, see that this makes sense. This is logical. My mind, my thoughts are in sync with this idea that indeed there are two types of ubudiyya. One we have no choice in, and the second we have a choice in it. And that thing we have a choice in, it's what's going to set us free. And that deep down, our truest identity is that we are completely dependent on God. But the question is, how do we break down the barriers that are keeping us from feeling this? Not only thinking it, not only realizing that it makes sense, but to feel it, to break down before God, to feel like there is no one else that matters except for God, to feel it. So that we are, when we call out His name, we're calling out to the one we know better than anyone else deep down. Because we know how weak we are, and we know that any strength, any existence that we feel is actually only because of Him and through Him. But how do we live that experience? How do we feel it? It's what we try to do with the supplications. It's what we try to do when we're trying to get this feeling of khushu' in salat. We're trying to get this sense of reverence of God, of feeling this submission to God, this feeling of being before the grandeur of God. Thinking about these ideas, reflecting upon them, are kind of just trying to set the stage. But the real experience is when we feel it, and we actually feel we're disconnecting from everything else, because we realize that our deepest connection is to God. The verse I started with says there is no God but He, the all-living, the all-self-subsisting. Al-Hayy Al-Qayyum. Allama Tabatabai in his Tafsir al-Mizan, in explaining this verse, the first part, he says on the word Al-Hayy, the all-living. ومن هنا يظهر أن الحياة الحقيقية يجب أن تكون بحيث يستحيل طلوع الموت عليها لذاتها، ولا يتصور ذلك إلا بكون الحياة عين ذات الحي غير عارضة لها ولا طارئة عليها بتمليك الغير وإفاضته. قال تعالى: وتوكل على الحي الذي لا يموت. وعلى هذا فالحياة الحقيقية هي الحياة الواجبة، وهي كون وجوده بحيث يعلم ويقدر بالذات. In summary, what he's saying here is the true life, which is God's life, is the life which is not dependent on anybody else in its life. Every other being that you can think lives in any way, shape or form. Examine it. Look again. فارجع البصر هل ترى من فطور ثم ارجع البصر كرتين ينقلب إليك البصر خاسئا. Look again. Look again. What do you find when you reflect on the nature of that life? Do you find that it has what it takes in and of itself to live? Or is it weak and dependent on something else? The only life which is self-subsisting, the only life which is independent, is the life of God. Every other life form can only live through the breath of life that He gives it. And the second name here that's mentioned is Al-Qayyum. Al-Qayyum links very closely to this, to explaining how we need God not just to begin life, not just to live in the beginning, but rather to continue and at every passing moment. On this name, Allama Tabatabai says, وَأَمَّا اسْمُ الْقَيُّومِ فَهُوَ عَلَى مَا قِيلْ فِي عُول كالقيام فِعَال من القيام وصف يدل على المبالغة والقيام هو حفظ الشيء وفعله وتدبيره حفظ الشيء وفعله وتدبيره وتربيته والمراقبة, or depends on how you read this, but the point is he's saying that what is qaymuma? What is it about? It comes from the, etymologically it's related to the word standing in Arabic, or somebody who's overseeing, overlooking, supervising. What is this overlooking, overseeing, supervising over what? He's standing as if he's taking care of something, overseeing. He's being the one to stand and keep something upheld. What is he keeping upheld? What is he watching over? What is he taking care of? God, that is. What is he taking care of? He's taking care of the thing, its action, caretaking it, raising it, monitoring it, and having his ability encompass it. He has the power over it. على كل ذلك مأخوذ من القيام بمعنى الانتصاب للملازمة العادية بين الانتصاب وبين كل منها. He's saying these meanings are taken from the idea of standing, because the idea of standing linguistically is related to the idea of being upright, upholding something, keeping it upright. And the idea of being upright in this sense is related to all those meanings that I mentioned. Keeping it, upholding it, upkeeping something, maintaining it, overlooking it, monitoring it. All of those are related to this idea of uprightness, standing over something. And then he continues explaining this further. I want to take just one segment of it to emphasize the point I'm trying to make. He says, وقال تعالى وهو أشمل من الآية السابقة شهد الله أنه لا إله إلا هو والملائكة وأولو العلم قائما بالقسط لا إله إلا هو العزيز الحكيم فأفاد أنه قائم على الموجودات بالعدل فلا يعطي ولا يمنع شيئا في الوجود إلا بالعدل بإعطاء كل شيء ما يستحقه ثم بين أن هذا القيام بالعدل مقتضى اسميه الكريمين so on and so forth. He mentions that not only is this related to the existence of the thing, that its very being requires his maintenance and his upkeeping and his power over it, but it also is him upholding justice. So when he's the self-subsisting, when he's the one that is upholding something, when he is upkeeping it, when he is maintaining it, when he is watching over it, it's not only its very being that he's doing that to, he's also doing it regarding the justice that is related to it. In what sense? In the sense that he gives every being what is befitting of it. He gives every being its due right in the sense of what would keep it existing in the proper way, in the suitable way that is befitting. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, His qaymumiyya, His self-subsisting nature, which entails that He upkeeps everything else and maintains it. Are you feeling what I'm referring to here? What I talked about yesterday a little bit? The sense of how God is powering us up with the electricity of existence. That it's a constant thing that He's doing and taking care of us at every moment. It's not simply that He creates something and leaves it on its own. He is the qayyum. He is the one who is qa'im alayha. He is standing, watching over it. He is the one who is keeping it upright, upholding it. He is the one that is upkeeping it. He is the one that's caretaking it. At every moment, everything from the smallest subatomic particle to the greatest galaxies and even possible universes in the plural multiverse. At every moment, He's the one that's keeping it up. And not only its existence, but rather with justice. With justice in the sense that He gives it what is befitting of it in order to maintain its existence in the best way that He has intended for it based on His wisdom. Al-Hayy Al-Qayyum. From this point, I wanted to elaborate further on something I mentioned in passing yesterday, which is how we need God not only to begin to exist, we need God to continue to exist. We don't need God simply in the initiation. We need God in the subsistence of creation. We need God not only to begin to exist, but also to subsist. You've heard of this idea of causality, that you need a cause. One question that comes to the mind of, very reasonably, even a young child might come, this might come to the child's mind, which is, where did God come from? Some people, they say, everything needs a cause, therefore God must exist because this universe needs a cause. They phrase it like this: everything needs a cause, and because this universe is a thing, therefore this universe needs a cause, and that is God. So a child would then say, for example, oh, if everything needs a cause, what about God? God is a thing, therefore He needs a cause, so who created God? However, the fallacy there is that the original premise was misunderstood, or it was phrased improperly because it doesn't get the correct idea across. It's not that everything needs a cause. That's not true. Not everything needs a cause. Everything that can explain its own existence needs a cause. But if its existence is self-explanatory, then it doesn't need a cause. I said that yesterday about the idea of something requiring an explanation, something being self-explanatory. If a being is a limited being that has contingencies, that is a mere possibility, then when it exists, you wonder, well, how did this come to exist? It doesn't have what it takes to exist by virtue of what it is, by virtue of what it means, by virtue of its own nature. Okay, human. Ali Moughania. What about Ali Moughania means that he has to exist? Ali Moughania, a human being, one of the animals that has an ability to think, that has a sense of morality. Okay, what about that means that he has to exist? He could exist. If somebody brings him into existence, he exists. If nobody brings him into existence, he stays non-existent. Okay, same thing you could say about tree or book, masjid, universe, same thing. But when you say the necessary being, the one with no limitations, the one with no dependency, the one who is in no need, the one who we call Allah, God. When you think of the very meaning of what you're saying there, it means that He has no limitation, no dependency, no need. His existence is self-explanatory because He has no dependency. He doesn't rely on anything. To exist, all you have to propose is The very fact that something exists. If something exists, it must be that the one whose existence is self-explanatory does exist. Because every other existence requires an explanation. So you must have an explanation which is self-explanatory for anything to make sense. This is the first point. The fact that not everything needs a cause. Things that are not self-explanatory in their existence need a cause. Things that are contingent need a cause. Okay, here comes the second point. When you need a cause, why do you need a cause? Why am I asking this question? Because it has a big role to understand why you need God at every moment, and it's not just you need Him in the beginning. The way to answer this question is by answering what I just said right here. Why do you need a cause? Do you need a cause because you exist right now? Or do you need a cause because your very nature, your very identity deep down is that you are a limited, dependent, contingent notion? I think most of us probably see that the answer is the second, because I just explained. The reason why you need a cause is because you are limited, you are in need, you are dependent, you are contingent. If that is the case, then think of this. If the reason that you needed a cause to begin with was because you are contingent in your very identity, in your very essence, in your very nature of what it means to be you, what it would mean to potentially be you. My question is this. Right now you exist, right? You exist. But ask yourself this question deep down at your core. Do you have what it takes to keep yourself existing on your own? Or are you also contingent even right now? You're contingent. Even right now you're dependent. With every passing moment, you feel that you are still limited in so many different ways. You are dependent in so many different ways. And even the little life that we do have, the little power that we do have, it's only something that is being given to us at every moment. If that is the case, dear brothers and sisters, then what you have concluded, whether you put it into phrases or it's just something you felt at heart, what you've just concluded, dear brothers and sisters, is that you need God every passing moment. Because your contingency persists every passing moment. Because your need for God continues every passing moment. So you need Al-Qayyum every passing moment. Allahu la ilaha illa huwa al-hayyul qayyum. God, there is no God but Him, the all-living, the all-self-subsisting. And with that, and for the reference of those who are familiar with the Arabic, this is the idea that the reason why a cause requires, the reason why a being requires a cause, why a contingent being requires a cause, is because it's contingent. In Arabic, they say, عِلَّةُ حَاجَةِ الْمُمْكِنِ إِلَى الْعِلَّةِ هي الإمكان, as opposed to al-huduth. And what follows logically from this is what I explained to you all already, that, as they say in Arabic, حاجة الممكن إلى العلة حدوثا وبقاء. It needs its cause in the beginning and to subsist. It doesn't need it only in the beginning, it also needs it to maintain its existence, to continue to exist. With that, this is a good connection to what we read in Munajat Amir al-Mu'mineen. And of course, also in Dua al-Jawshan, which inshallah we'll read tonight. When we say, Mawlaya ya Mawlaya, Anta al-Mawla wa ana al-Abd. My master, or your majesty, you are the master and I am the slave. I am the abd, in the specific sense that I explained earlier. There are imaginary masters and there are real masters. If you understood what I meant when I said Al-Hayyul Qayyum, the all-living, the self-subsisting, you'll realize there is no real master in the truest sense except for God. No other master is the master independently. I may be subject to many variables. I am subject and limited by them. Subject to them, limited by them, dependent on them. You think that these have some real authority over me to some extent. True. But even those variables are subject to Al-Hayyul Qayyum. So there is no true Mawla except for Allah. When God chooses somebody to be a Mawla, representing Him, does He choose them based on the criteria, superficial criteria that human beings use? That could be fooling people because of the way, they look cool or they sound great? Or does God look to the core of His creatures and finds who amongst His creatures senses how God is the true Mawla the most, and who acts according to it the most, and then He chooses those individuals to be the ones who represent Him on earth? If you believe that God chooses them based on that true qualification, then you'd also believe that human beings can't figure out who it is on their own. They need God to tell them who it is. That is why we believe that prophets are appointed by God and guardians of the prophet's message are appointed by God. Then we continue in the munajat and we say, Mawlaya ya Mawlai, Anta al-Malik wa ana al-Mamluk. وَهَلْ يَرْحَمُ الْمَمْلُوكَ إِلَّا الْمَالِكِ. My master, oh my master, you are the owner. I'm the one who is owned. Who can have mercy on the one who is owned except for the owner? True, many of us realize the understanding of what ownership is in a superficial sense. That the way that human beings conventionally have agreed to think of, you own this, I own that. This is how you purchase it, and it becomes the thing you own. This is how you sell something you own and somebody else buys it. But if you think about it, this idea of ownership, this conventional ownership, it comes from the idea of real ownership in reality. Something that is truly owned. They made the convention based on the real idea of ownership. The real idea of ownership, can it be transferred? Think about it. What is the truest ownership you can ever get? God existed eternally. And then He created everything. At His level of independence, at His level of absoluteness, at His level of infinity, there is nothing but Him. Everything else is dependent on Him. Everything else is second to Him. Everything else is completely in utter poverty in need of Him. Who can own anything except for Him? He is the true owner. If I feel that I am owned by God, I am a property owned by God. I am nothing on my own. He's the one who created me, one. So He owns what He created, one. And two, every passing moment, He is Al-Qayyum. He is the self-subsisting. He is the one who's upkeeping me. He is the one who's powering me up with life at every moment. He owns me anew every moment. If I feel that, if I feel it, and I don't just think it, if I feel how I'm owned. Imagine right now something that you own. Some things we don't even own them, like our children. We don't own our children. But we feel so, we have this, we feel like we have such a great right over them, that if anything were to happen to them, or if anybody were to do anything to them, or if they would do anything without your approval or our approval, we would feel like that's such a big deal. What if you actually owned something that's your property, and somebody was playing around with it, or dealing with it in a way that you would not approve? Somebody took it away from you and treated it in a way that you didn't approve. How would you feel, that feeling right there? Okay, that feeling, you've captured it. Now think of how we are owned by God. And He told us, look, I created you. I'm keeping you alive every moment. I provided for you. I prepared the grounds for your existence even before you were in your mother's womb. And then I made sure that your parents got together. And I made sure to take care of your parents and generations before them that led to their existence. Until your parents got together. And they had a surrounding family that supported them. And they had food to keep them healthy. And then when your mother had you in her womb, I made sure that her body functioned properly. And I made sure that she had the care and the love in her heart to take care of you as a pregnant woman when she was pregnant with you. And over those 9 months, I gave her this special compassion that is not comparable to anything else that humans face in this life. When you look at the compassion that a mother has towards her infant in her womb. And then when you were brought into this world, look how I made all of these different people have such sincere emotions of care and compassion towards you and kindness towards you. And look how I took care of you throughout all of the days of your life, little by little, as you grew up from this little child, this little baby with such small fingers. You grew up into this young boy or young girl. And then as you grew up and you started to understand this world, I made sure that you had people around you to love you and to take care of you and to teach you and to be merciful with you. You were not struck by lightning. You survived. You were not born with all of these different tests that other people may be faced with. I blessed them in different ways, but I blessed you also in your own way. And I took care of you as each stage of your life that you grew up in. And I made sure that when you reached the stage of puberty, you had the proper function of a mind, proper function of reasoning and a sense of morality to know when it was the right thing to do something and when it was wrong. I gave you enough sense for you to figure out that you needed to search for the truth and you needed to question your assumptions. I gave you enough for you to be responsible for your decisions. And then, what did you do? What did I do? These are, by the way, just a lot of what I just said right now is reminiscent of what we read in Dua Arafah, in the supplication associated with Imam Hussein alayhi salam on the day of Arafah. He explains to us how we went through stages. If you want, take a look at it, or at least on the day of Arafah, don't forget to take a look at it, inshallah. But also in Dua Abi Hamza, you start to recall now, you start to think of all of the blessings that God gave us. What did I do with these blessings? Oh God, you are the one who has given me. You are the one who has blessed me. You are the one who has guided me. I was down in the gutter and you raised me up. I was weak and you made me strong. I was ignorant and you made me learn. I was in a situation where I had nothing and you gave me. Well then what did I do in response? How did I thank you? And then you start to count one thing after the other. What did I do? I'm the one who made a mistake. I'm the one who sinned. I am the one who oppressed. I am the one who did wrong. You start to reflect on how you dealt with the real master. The words are in that dua are so powerful. I hope that we will all get an opportunity to at least read this segment that I'm referring to. It's a little bit before the halfway of the dua Abi Hamza. in this segment, if we reflect on it, I think it's very difficult for somebody not to be shaken and moved by that segment. When you realize how, when I realize how have I reciprocated? How have I dealt with God? How have I dealt with the real master? How have I dealt with the real owner? مولاي يا مولاي أنت العزيز وأنا الذليل وهل يرحم الذليل إلا العزيز. My master, you are the one with honor. You are the glorious one. And I am the low. I am the one who is down. I am the one who is in this abased position. Think about, have any of you felt like somebody tried to put you down at any point of your life? Think of that moment that you remember when somebody tried to put you down and shut you down. They tried to humiliate you and they tried to make you feel like you were nothing. Remember that moment or moments. Capture those images. Remember how you felt? Remember how you felt? Then ask, who is the real master? Who is the real person has the higher hand? Was it that person that was humiliating me? Or was that a very artificial position they were taking? The real master is God. The real owner is God. So then, when you realize that, you feel, oh Allah, that feeling that I felt, yeah, that person did something wrong. They humiliated me. They didn't have a right to do that. They disgraced me. They tried to make me feel bad. They didn't have a right to do that. But you know what, that feeling reminded me that indeed you are the master. You are the one with all the honor. I am the one who is low. Dear brothers and sisters, no one has a right to make us disgraced or humiliate us. We do not even have a right to humiliate ourselves. In some reports it says that a believer has been given the prerogative to do so many different things, but he has not been given the prerogative, or he has not been given the right to humiliate himself. It is God that honors us. But before God, we are the low. We are nothing. God is the only one before whom we should feel disgraced. We should feel like we are low. Not because God is humiliating us, God forbid. God is the one who is honoring us. But it's because we feel God deserves our true submission, our true subservience. To be in line with our truest identity. The theme that I was trying to get at when I'm saying this tonight, dear brothers and sisters, is that we are in need to the core. I say this and I ask God to forgive me, to forgive us all, especially on this blessed night that is actually coming to us. In this holy month of Ramadan, this month in which we are the guests of God, we are even more special guests on this night, which is very possibly the eve. This is the eve of the 23rd, that is probably Laylatul Qadr. The night in which worship, good deeds, are like doing it in 1,000 months. It's that much worthwhile. Let's hope that by the end of this night, throughout the night until the end of the night, by the time that the adhan of Fajr comes upon us, that we are in a state where we are feeling, not just thinking, feeling that need for God, and we break down, hopefully into tears, asking God, oh Allah, you have told us to forgive those who have oppressed us, those who have wronged us. And we have wronged ourselves. And you are more entitled to forgive us than we are entitled to forgive ourselves. So forgive us, O our Master, O Allah. I say this, and I ask God to forgive us all. Please keep us all in your prayers, all the believers across the globe. Pray to God with a tongue that you did not sin against God with. We should pray to God with a tongue that we did not sin against God with. How do we do so? As the reports tell us, it is by praying to God on the tongues of your fellows, your fellow brethren. When a believer prays for you, he's praying for you with a tongue that you did not sin, I did not sin against God with. So let's pray for each other, for all the believers across the globe, to give victory to those who are on the battlefields, defending righteousness, defending justice, against terrorism, against all of the oppressors across the globe. To pray for all of the sick, to pray for all of the misguided, to pray that God will bring us closer to Him, and for God to give us the relief after which no other relief is needed. That is the relief of the Imam of our time. May God hasten his appearance and make us amongst his sincere supporters. Well, the last of our prayers is Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen wa Subhana Rabbika Rabbil Izzati Amma Yasifun wa Salamun al Mursaleen walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina wa Nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala ahli baytihi at-tayyibin at-tahirin.
Allahumma